Have you ever wondered what really lies behind the legend of Freddie Mercury? Not the icon in the spotlight, not the voice that shook the earth, but the man, flawed, fierce, and at times deeply alone. Everyone knows Freddie as the flamboyant frontman of Queen, a performer with unmatched charisma. But what if I told you that behind the dazzling lights, the thunderous applause, and the stadium-filling voice was a world of rivalries, fractured relationships, and demons he could never quite outrun? Steve Walsh, lead singer of Kansas and a powerhouse in his own right, recently pulled back the curtain. What he revealed wasn't just surprising, it was explosive. A rivalry, buried for decades, that quietly simmered while both men rose to the top of rock royalty. Walsh admired Freddie at first, but admiration curdled into resentment. He felt dismissed, overshadowed, like he was always playing second fiddle to a man who refused to share the spotlight. And Freddie? He barely acknowledged Walsh, often brushing off comparisons with a smirk or a shrug. To him, he wasn't competing with anyone, because in his mind, there was no competition. That confidence, that defiant self-belief, may have fueled his greatness. But it also bred enemies, quiet ones, jealous ones, and some, like Walsh, who carried that tension for years without ever saying a word publicly. Until now. But it wasn't just Steve. Freddie Mercury seemed to attract conflict like a magnet. He clashed with David Bowie, another towering figure of talent and ego, during the creation of Under Pressure. At first, it was meant to be a collaborative masterpiece. But from the moment they stepped into the studio, it became a war of wills. Bowie wanted control, so did Freddie. Every note was a standoff, every lyric a negotiation. The result was a masterpiece, yes, but the damage to their relationship was irreversible. They never worked together again. Then came Sid Vicious, raw, angry, anti-everything. Freddie was everything punk detested, glamorous, dramatic, unapologetically theatrical. Vicious mocked him, even called him Freddie Platinum. Freddie didn't back down. He called Sid Simon Ferocious and humiliated him in front of the crew. No punches were thrown, but the energy in the room was so thick, it felt like it might explode. But perhaps the most heartbreaking conflict wasn't with fellow artists or rivals. It was within Queen itself. On stage, they were a unit, tight, electric, untouchable. But behind the scenes, the dynamic was tense and often combustible. Freddie demanded perfection, but on his terms. He didn't want a democracy. He wanted brilliance, boldness, spectacle. Brian May, the methodical craftsman, tried to rein in the chaos. He believed in harmony, musically and interpersonally. But Mercury thrived in disorder. Their arguments were legendary. Creative vision clashed with control. Ideas turned into shouting matches. There were times when Brian nearly walked away. John Deacon, the soft-spoken bassist, often faded into the background. But even he had moments when Mercury's overpowering nature pushed him to the edge. Deacon once said he didn't feel heard in the band. Imagine creating some of the most iconic music in rock history and still feeling invisible. Roger Taylor, the drummer and Freddie's closest personality match, stood by him more often than not, but even Roger had his limits. As the band grew, so did Mercury's appetite for control. And there were moments, long nights, endless rehearsals, heated sessions, when it felt less like a band and more like Freddie's kingdom. And through all of this, standing silently in the eye of the storm, was Mary Austin. Mary was more than Freddie's lover. She was his mirror, his compass, the only one who truly understood the fragile heart beating behind all the bravado. He called her the love of his life. He once said that all his lovers could be replaced, but not Mary. Still, fame changed everything. The touring, the temptations, the secrets he kept hidden, even from her. When he finally confessed his sexuality, it wasn't just a moment of truth. It was a turning point, the end of their romance, but not the end of their bond. She stayed, through the wild parties, the revolving doors of people, the moments of spiraling excess. When everyone else drifted in and out of his life, Mary remained his anchor. But even she couldn't stop the storm. Freddie's world was dazzling on the outside, but fractured at its core. He surrounded himself with people who worshipped him, but few who truly knew him. He gave everything to his fans, but often had nothing left for the people who mattered most.